Hey, this is Rob Swanson with the Real Estate Mogul Show. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Rob Swanson back with another episode of the Real Estate Mogul Show. Today, we are diving into session number 2, talking about scripts. We broke the last session up because there's so much to talk about when it comes to talking to sellers and the scripts and the process and how you need to get your mind right to do this, that we thought, if we just go straight through, we're going to talk for 3 hours. In fact, we could do a 3-day boot camp just on talking to people. And, at the end of the day, we just decided to break it up and cut the script conversation in half. And so today we're going to be diving in and going into round 2. But before we do that, let's start out with a quick update, guys. Hey, since the last time we talked, the deal is closed. The airplane is mine. Even though we're recording this right after the last one, I got the email.
Did you really?
Nice.
I got the email.
That's killer. Congratulations.
So it's legit. So we're a week later.
Congratulations.
We're a week later, even though
This is some
we're like
weird
60
Inception
seconds
deja vu kind of stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah, do you guys know how to have this conversation in the future but project backwards?
Rob
Are
already
you
is.
guys on this?
It sounds like
You
a
already have
Christopher Nolan movie.
Right. I love that you got the email though, and actually we have some
That's
new
cool.
things to talk about.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is cool.
I got the email, and so the airplane is officially mine. So Freedom Air has upgraded its speed.
doubled in size too.
Yeah,
Yeah, considerably. What are the cruising speeds on both? Old airplane, new airplane.
So I fly a Mooney J model now, and that will cruise 150, 155 knots.
Yep.
And it'll burn 9 gallons an hour. So really, reasonable speed for very fuel efficient.
Yep.
And a good endurance. It'll go a long ways because I can really dial back the fuel burn. I've had it down into the 8 gallons an hour burn.
Yep.
The new plane will burn more. Probably 18 gallons an hour, so it'll burn about double, but it'll go over 200 knots. So,
Considerably fast.
yeah, I figure in my flight planning that I've been doing ahead of taking possession of the airplane, just to try to get familiar with its performance characteristics and playing with different things.
Yep.
I figure it's going to cruise about 80 miles an hour faster.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That's a chunk. Yeah.
Couple
That's
questions.
Yeah.
Last time we spoke, you said potentially keeping both.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still an option, or when a buyer comes up, are you okay selling, or no?
You want to buy it?
No. Can you wholesale an airplane?
Sure you can. So I was thinking about keeping it, but I think what I'm deciding to do, because I don't think, so I was thinking about keeping it just because I bought it right. I've owned it for a while. I know every nook and cranny and screw on that airplane. I know the airplane really well. But what I decided, and the only reason I would keep it is if my son, and if Nick decided that he wanted to fly at some point. But I think what we'll probably end up doing is sell this one, and then if he ever pursues it, maybe we buy a Mooney Encore or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. So probably buy another turbo. So it's sell the normally aspirated, so sell it, and then buy a turbo at some point in the future.
Okay. Well, you took away my second question, because if you would have said you were planning on keeping it, I was going to ask you to talk about the plans for hangar and or storage options.
Yeah, well, I still have a dilemma on the hangar, because now I own one hangar and 2 airplanes, and I don't really want either one of them to sit out on the ramp. It's not a bad time of year to sit out on the ramp. It's getting cooler. It's dry in Colorado. It's not a bad time. Right. But I would like to get it sold now that I've made the decision to truly sell it before the winter hits, and so not land on that. But
because the rocket goes in the hangar, right?
Yeah. The rocket's going in the hangar.
Yes.
100%.
Just put an addition on the hangar, Rob.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, I know. What I really need to do is buy a house in a air park, which my wife is fully on board with. She's supportive of this. She would like that.
Just have it attached to the house.
That would be super fun. Get a big enough one that you could maybe drop a little tail dragger and the rocket in there together. I don't,
Amazing.
just just thinking.
Options.
Options.
Thinking out loud.
Yeah. But I would have, if I was going to keep it, I would have hustled up another hangar. Like there's a 5 to 7 year wait list at the airport that I'm parked at. And the last time I decided to hustle up a hangar, it took me 7 days. It took me 4 days to hustle it up, 7 days to close. So it's just the skills that we talk about here of real estate investing.
Same thing. Rob,
Same thing.
you used the script,
I used the script.
the same script
And
that we're talking about.
I ended up buying my hangar in an airport that is super competitive, extremely in demand, a 7-year wait list to buy or lease a hangar, and really, really competitive market. And I bought the hangar owner financing in a week.
It's almost like the same scenarios, right? Because somebody that, is looking for a hangar would hear all those points that you just make and say, it's just not in the cards right now.
That's right.
And competitive market, interest rates are high.
Yep.
I just don't feel like sellers are interested right now. Even if I do get something under contract, there's no buyers buying right now.
Yeah.
But you took action and you got a hangar faster than anyone else on a 7-year wait list.
Yeah. You know why? Because I believe it's possible.
Yeah, there you go.
My belief does not second guess. It doesn't question. My belief system is, I don't know exactly how fast it will happen. I don't know exactly what the deal will look like, and I don't know exactly who the seller will be or exactly where the hangar will be located. But there was zero inside of me that believed it would not happen. I 100% believed it was going to happen. I just had to take the actions. I had to put in the effort at a sufficient level of skill to get the result I wanted. That's what everything comes down to. Put in the effort at a sufficient level of skill, which, inside of the Mogul Academy, we talk about that all the time. You have to take the action. So put in the effort, and then your level of skill has to be increasing over time until you hit that pivot point where there's the sufficient level of skill where results start to happen. You're going to be putting in a lot of effort at the beginning, but your skill level is not going to be sufficient to produce the result. And this is where 90% of people that quit. They're working hard, their skill level is low, they're not getting the result. And what they don't realize is that if they focused on doing the actions and slowly but surely, daily, increasing their skill level, there is a point at which the skill lever turns. And all of a sudden they are at a sufficient level of skill to get the results that they've wanted from the beginning. And I find that it takes a personality to do that, or it takes somebody to say, I don't have that personality, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to a decision,
right?
Yeah, and
down to a decision.
You, like, subtle plug here. I mean, some people have the personality and the way to do it by themselves, or maybe they don't really need an extra push. But there are, I mean, even me included, like, being in proximity to people is like fuel on that fire. And you said when they cross over, basically, that could be a really, really long event for someone that is trying to do it by themselves and not investing in knowledge and proximity to network and people.
Yep.
And that's why we talk about me sometimes is, I was in proximity to you two for 6 months straight and bug the living crap out of you guys. And I give credit to that because that's why I was able to move up a little faster.
Yep.
Because I chose to ask questions, bug you guys, be in proximity as much as I could. And yeah.
Zig Ziglar has a great quote for proximity. He says, I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but he says something like, getting motivated is like taking a bath. I recommend it daily. Right? So you can't get motivated on Monday,
Right.
and then just expect it to still be around on Sunday. And so what happens with the proximity and the stories and the conversation is that it's constantly there.
Yep. Well,
Which,
no, keep going.
I was just going to say, it just speaks to that fact that all of us, right? Hey, I got motivated when I was 20.
Yep.
Now I'm right, whatever age you are, and I'm good to go. That's not how it works.
Well, so this is, somebody's going to apply what I'm about to say. And, there's a book by Ben Hardy, and who's the guy from Strategic Coach? Forgetting his name. But it's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And why can't I remember his name? I'm going to look it up and tell you.
We need to go.
I can look it up.
Yeah, we need.
10X?
Yeah.
We need some effort music, Joe.
Joe, push the buttons over there. Let's make this happen. Okay.
We're looking for the.
Yeah, I'll tell you in a second. I got it right here. Dan Sullivan. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. So there's a book. 10X is easier than 2X. So it's talking about, and this is not just business, right? They use business analogies, examples, but this can be applied to anything in life. And so you just mentioned that every day you wake up, and Zig Ziglar was a great motivational business thought leader, right? And every day you wake up, you have to reframe and reset your mind to be motivated. And so here's an example. In business, you have to do that. In life, you have to do that. In relationships, you have to do that. In finances, you have to do that. You have to do that in everything, every area of life. I'm going to give you guys a good example that I've applied this to in my life. And 10X is easier than 2X. What basically that says is, in order to go 10X, you have to blow through 2X. So if you're setting your targets on 2X improvements, these little incremental growth things, you're probably focusing on doing more of what you're already doing, and doing more of what you're already doing, expecting growing improvements, is hard. It takes more people, it takes more skill, it takes more expertise, it takes higher conversion, it takes all of this stuff. Going 10X, you probably can't do within the confines of what you're already doing. To go 10X, you have to think outside of the limits of the 2X growth, of the 2X opportunity. You have to think bigger. And so 10X is easier than 2X. Here's the example. Every day when I come home from work, whether it's a good day, a bad day, a stressful day, an easy day, a fun day, a not fun day, whatever, doesn't matter. When I step onto the front steps of my house, before I walk into the house, that entrance into my house is my 10X reset zone. For one reason, I want to 10X the relationship with my wife every time I walk into the house. So I step on those steps, I think to myself, 10X is easier than 2X. So what am I going to do to show up when I walk into the house, drop my stuff off in my office, walk over into the kitchen, and my wife is probably in the kitchen or somewhere in the house, and I see her for the first time. When I take a step onto the front porch before I walk into the house, I reset my brain and I say 10X. It's my 10X moment for our relationship. And so instead of walking in and being incrementally worse than I should be, or incrementally better than I should be, I reframe, I 10X my mind, and I walk in and I try to 10X my relationship with my wife because I thought about it. And so I think the point there is you've got to wake up and you got to think about it every day. And I wanted to just throw a non-business example because I try to do this in a lot of areas of my life, right? I try to do this in flying. I try to do this in software. I try to do this in real estate. I try to do this in my relationships. So I try to think 10X, right? And so a non-business example might spur someone to think, well, how could I 10X an area of my life? And sometimes you 10X one area and all of a sudden 10Xing another area becomes easier. Guess what? When the relationship with my wife is 10X'd, me telling her that I just bought an airplane was a lot easier than if it wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
I bought it for you.
Babe, I bought it for us.
Yeah.
I bought it for us.
What you did. Now you can get places faster.
Totally.
Yeah. More experience.
Side note, I could have used a front porch 10x reset last night before putting 3 kids to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. But that's, so take that, apply that. Like everybody listening, that if you're in a relationship, have kids, have significant other, whatever, no matter who it is, when you walk up to that front porch, make that your 10x reset moment. And then walk in and 10x the relationships that you have. Mm-hmm. You're not going to do it perfect every time, but like I've literally named my front porch my 10x front porch. And every time I step onto that front porch, I think about it. Because by being intentional about it, I take the right actions towards it. So, we're not talking about scripts at all here.
It's good stuff.
Sure we are. I think we are, because you can be intentional when you sit down in front of that script and are sitting there thinking about calling that person. You can have that same 10x is better than 2x mindset, and you can say, okay, I'm going to approach this conversation in that same way and 10x this relationship. Right.
What's interesting, and then part 2 here. So when when we're talking about family, kids, relationship, that kind of thing, it's really a servant mindset. I've been a dad for a while now, not as long as some, but longer than others. And it's, the challenge to turn the work and the stuff brain off. Mm-hmm. And then when I walk in the door, they just want to jump on me because they're still at that age. Right.
Yep.
And so to go into that with that mindset of, I'm not always in the mood for it. Right. But what do they need when I get home? And it's interesting because you were talking about, walking into your house and then you said this isn't really a business example, but it's totally a business example too. It applies to a lot of different places. But when you, from a mindset, when you get a seller on the phone and the only thing you can think about is how much money am I going to make on this person's house, you don't bother to build rapport and to care. When you go into that and say, A, do they have a need? And if they do, how can I serve them?
Yep.
How can I create a win for them? And by the way, I'm not going to neglect myself, right? Your business still needs to make money, but that is a game-changing mindset shift.
Well, it's why that question that we talked about in session 1 is so critical. Henry, if I could close on your house in the next 21 to 30 days, buy it as is, pay cash, and you can walk away with all of your money at closing, what's the least you would sell me the house for today? That question is not a greed question. That question is a question of, I need to understand where your brain is at, Mr. Seller. How do we solve your problem? What solves your problem in your mind? Let me not presume what solves your problem. Let me simply ask you. And the same question we did on the terms side of that in session 1. You can go back to the previous show and listen to that. We talked the same question on the terms side to get that rapport flow with the seller going where they start to help you solve their problem. Because that's one of the keys to following a script, right? We've got the loops and the leads model. We know the destination where we're headed. But then what we have to do is we have to get the seller engaged in solving the problem. If you try to have the conversation where you're making all of the decisions, the seller feels forced upon, right? You want them in the conversation and you want them helping solve the problems along the way. Occupancy date. What do we do with the tenants? You've got a lease that's expired. They haven't paid for a while. You owe X on the property. Code enforcement has this much violations and fines. All of the things that come into the conversation. You want them to help you solve those little things because now they're involved in the solution. That's how you end up with a signed purchase agreement at the end, when they're involved in helping you solve their pain.
Yeah, I mean, littered throughout the script, there are scenarios where the sentence ends with asking them a question. Does that sound fair to you? Does that work for you? Is this okay?
Yep.
I mean, that puts them in the driver's seat to be able to express their opinions on how they would like the situation to go.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and another great question that I often ask is, hey, what do you think we should do with the code violations? Or how are you thinking about handling the code violations? Like when you ask that question, or so Joe, how are you thinking about handling the delinquent taxes? And most of the time they're going to say, I don't know. I just want to sell the house.
Yeah.
And that gives you the opportunity to say, well, I'll tell you what, how about we just take care of it for you? How about if we can come to a price that we both agree on, and if we just take care of the code violation fines and the taxes that haven't been paid for the last couple of years, if we take care of that at closing, would that work for you, Henry?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we didn't have to talk about the price yet, but what we started to do was get sequential yeses along the way. Hey, if we take care of the code violations, would that be okay with you, Henry? Would that work? If we just factor that into the price that we pay on the house, and if we just take care of code violations and all of the paperwork associated with that, would that work for you? Oh man, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Taxes, right? Eviction. Going back to the hangar, right? I bought the hangar from a guy who had a deadbeat tenant. He had an airplane in his hangar. He moved out of state. He took his plane with him. He owned the hangar. He leased the hangar out. The guy moved his airplane in and then stopped paying him rent on the hangar. So now he's in the middle of an eviction. He's in the middle. He's a distant landlord in the middle of an eviction with a deadbeat tenant that won't call him back. And he's trying to deal with all of this as a non-real estate expert.
Literally no difference here.
There's none.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
no difference.
It's a really relevant example.
It's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no idea that he could sell the hangar before he dealt with the tenant. And I said to him, well, let me ask you, if I just take care of the tenant, if I take care of the tenant, if I take on all of the responsibility for back rent and collection and the eviction and the costs and everything from here going forward, would that help you? And he's like, man, that'd be freaking awesome. I didn't know I could do that. I said, oh yeah, I've done this 1,000 times. He goes, you've done this 1,000 times? What does that mean? I said, well, I buy real estate, and I buy and sell real estate, and I've dealt with this kind of scenario before. And I said, so all you would have to do is assign me your lease. I'll take the lease on. I'll buy the lease from you at closing, and then I'll deal with the tenant from there. And if he doesn't move out, I'll deal with it. If he does move out, I'll be able to move my hangar in. But either way, you don't have to worry about it anymore, and I'm going to start paying you on a monthly basis. Does that work for you? Yeah, that works for me. When
all
can we
day,
close?
every day. Yeah.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but it was talking through and understanding what was motivating him, right? If I would have just gone into, tell me about the hangar. Well, it's 45 feet wide, and it's, 36 feet deep, and it's steel framed, and it's, I got a nice concrete floor in it, and I got power, and I got lights, and who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Right? What I wanted to know was, he said one thing to me that was the obvious terms deal. I said, why are you interested in selling? See, that we're back to interested in selling.
I was just going to bring this up, but you're going there anyway. Perfect.
Not motivated to sell. He was interested in selling because he didn't want to deal. He was tired of dealing with the tenant and the eviction and the cost and the frustration. But he said this, why are you interested in selling? He goes, man, I don't really want to sell because I like the income of owning the hangar because I like the cash flow. Ding, 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 ding,
Light
ding,
bulb.
ding. Light bulb moment. So I went then down, but I figured that out because I talked to him. And then I asked him that question, why are you interested in selling? It's a great little hangar. Why are you interested in selling? Well, I'm not really interested in selling, but I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I said, well, let me ask you this, because he said he didn't even know that he could sell. Let me ask you this. If I take care of the lease, if I deal with the tenant, and what if I could structure this deal where you get to keep the cash flow? Would you be interested in selling then? He goes, yeah. So he went from a non-interested seller, yellow light, to an interested seller when I started to solve his problems in a package deal.
Developing motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, like helping him understand that, you know what? Wow, okay, there is a way for me to get out from underneath this, but get everything I want. No longer deal with the tenant and keep my income, my stream of income. It was a win-win, and this guy was all about it. He loved it. And, I put I wanted the deal. So the other piece of it, right, we've talked about all cash, no terms, all terms, no cash. This was a some terms, some cash. This was a middle.
Right. That's what I recall is that he wanted to start a business or something.
He had a project that he was working on that he needed a little bit of cash.
Yep.
And so I asked him, I said, do you need all the cash? Like if I were to pay you cash for this hangar, do you need all of that cash to do the project you're trying to do? And he goes, no, I don't need all of it. I said, well, what's the lowest amount that you need out of this? And he tells me the number. And I said, well, all right. Well, why don't we just structure the deal where I get you a little bit of cash at closing. You become the bank. You assign me the lease. I'll deal with the tenant from there. You'll have the cash you need for your project. You'll have the cash flow you want from owning the hangar currently, and you won't have to deal with the tenant anymore. I'll take on all of that responsibility. Would a deal like that work for you?
Where do I sign?
Where do I sign?
Done.
Like, and I've done that with houses, like so many times. But people get so locked in on this scary conversation with a seller because they don't know how to have the conversation, right? Script is about structure. It's not always about the perfect words, right? And there are phrases that we kind of go to that are easy to move a conversation, either loop it back around or lead it forward. So there are phrases that we go to, but it's more about the flow of the conversation and the structure, the blocks of the conversation, that it is perfect words every time.
The key piece here too is that, we've been driving home is if you call up and just start asking about the hangar, you don't know what he's trying to solve.
Right.
And so as you ask questions and discovered the scenario, the solution kind of presented itself.
Yep.
Oh, you need this for this, but you like the payments, but oh, great.
Yep. And guess what I did to build initial rapport?
Asked him about his area code.
I asked him about his area code.
Probably ask him
Right.
what plane he owned.
I asked him, I said, hey, so did you have a plane in the hangar before you moved? And he's like, yeah, I had a Mooney. I said, no kidding.
No
I
kidding.
said, that's what I got. I got a little Mooney. He's like, oh, really? Tell me, what are you flying? And I started telling him, oh, that's exactly. He goes, 1 year different than mine. Like all of a sudden we got that same freaking airplane. We're talking airplanes. We're building rapport. He likes me. I like him. It's cool. It was fun.
The deal was done before the deal was done.
It really was, but I could have killed the deal by not understanding
Right.
what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have understood his pain and his desire, I could have killed that deal because I could have just said, well, I'm just going to make him an all cash offer at a steep discount. And at the end of the day, I paid him his price, but I paid his price on my terms.
Yeah.
It would have been my price, my terms, or his price, my terms. We get to pick one of the two.
Yep.
We don't get to pick both.
Yeah.
And so we got to understand which one to land on.
Two things. For the listeners at home, they may be curious, what did you do with the tenant? How did you handle that?
I called the guy up once I had the lease assigned to me, I called the guy up and I said, I'm going to use the name Bill. I can't remember what his name was. Hey, is Bill around? Yeah, this is Bill. Hey, Bill. Hey, listen, my name is Rob. I just bought the hangar out at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport that you've got all your stuff in. And I just wanted to let you know that what I'd like to do is move into the hangar this next week. And so what I'd like to do is meet you this Saturday. I've got $1,000 cash for you. I'll go ahead and I'll forgive all of the back payments, all of the rent owed, all of the interest, all of the legal fees. I'll forgive all of that, and I'll hand you $1,000 cash if you move your stuff out of the hangar and sign a lease termination agreement, which will say that everything has been forgiven. I said, or I'm going to have to start collecting the rent and, pursue back payments and the eviction. Would Saturday morning at 9 work for you?
And $1,000?
He said, I think I can be there.
Long story short, cash for keys.
Cash for
That's
keys.
all it was.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you'll pay me $1,000 to be out. He goes, I'll be out.
Yeah.
$1,000. He was out. Lease termination agreement signed. I moved in. 7 days, start to finish.
Yeah. So so number two, a lot of people, their brains may start talking and saying, well, that fell in your lap. That's an easy one, right? And that's rare for the houses, right? And their brains are going to start chirping because they may have just gotten off of the phone with a seller that said, yeah, I know. Yeah. They may have just gotten off of the phone with a seller, or the immediate conversation starter was, hey, you sent me a mail. I got it in the mail. I want $25,000 for my house. That's what you're going to have to offer. Can you do that? How does that go from there?
So two things. The belief system that the person you're talking about is wrong.
Yep.
Right. They have a belief system that is going to get them exactly what they believe they are going to get. I believe that I'm going to get what I want. I believe that I'm going to be able to help somebody in doing that. So my belief system went in and said, I know exactly what I want, and I believe that it's going to happen. And so I took the appropriate actions with the sufficient level of skill to produce the result I wanted. So that's the number one thing. Get your mind right. Get your beliefs right, right? If you hang around me long enough, you don't have any choice but to believe positive things. Mm-hmm. Because that's how I'm wired. That's how you guys are wired. That's why you're on the team. That's why you're here. That's why we motivate people in the Mogul Academy and help them produce the results they want. That's why we make moguls. It's because our mind is right, our beliefs are right, and we take the right actions with a sufficient level of skill to produce a result. Now, you asked the $25,000 question. Mm-hmm. I'll back this up and tell you about a little house that I flipped a little while back, maybe a year ago, maybe. The seller responded to our marketing. Marketing came in, and the text was, they responded to a postcard. They texted us off of the postcard and said, I'll sell 42 cash firm. Bought the house for 22 cash. We bought the house $20,000 less than what their short, direct statement of I'll sell for 42 was. Why? Because we called them back. And we knew that we couldn't pay 42 cash for the house. Mm-hmm. We knew we couldn't pay 42. We knew it was way over what we could pay. We called him back, and we started having a conversation with him. And we used the area code trick. We built some rapport. We got into the conversation. We understood why he was interested in selling and what his pain was. And once we understood those two things, we got to the back end, the last third of the script, where we made the offer, right? Scarcity, urgency, and we made the offer. And let's talk about those for a second, because scarcity is, how do we build scarcity into the script? Hey, Henry, I've got some cash. I don't have an unlimited amount of cash. And so I have to decide what house I'm going to buy with this cash. And I need to decide that in the next day or two. And so if it's your house, and if I can give my cash to you, that's great. If that doesn't work, I've got to find a spot to put my cash sooner versus later. Scarcity. I've got a limited resource. I've got money, I've got capital, I've got money to buy a house, but I don't have unlimited cash. I'm just an average everyday guy, okay? Scarcity. Urgency is, so scarcity is limited capital. Urgency is I have to do this pretty quick because I got to get this money back to work. So scarcity, urgency, and then the offer. That's how we build the last pieces of this. And so when people talk about when people talk about how they made an offer, the seller verbally accepted, but then they never got the signed agreements back, they didn't properly walk through this process. And one of those things is what we call a two-condition close. And when we do the two-condition close, and when we execute it well inside of the script, there's a 90% plus chance we're getting that paperwork signed, and we're going to help solve that seller's problem, because we've gone all through the script up to that point, and we've landed on an offer that works for them. So the two-condition close comes in the last, the final third section of the script, but at the very beginning, we have what we call the upfront agreement. And the upfront agreement is where we get the seller in the conversation to tell us that if we can land on a price or on terms and a time frame that works for them to solve whatever reason they have for selling the property, if we can agree on those things, are they ready to sell today? And we get them to say yes. If they say no, we stop and we lean back in. Are you an interested seller? Yes. You're interested in selling. Okay. Why are you interested in selling? We got to go back to the why. But those two things, the upfront contract or the upfront verbal agreement, and then the two-condition close is in the front third of the script and in the back third of the script, and they talk to each other because they set the framework for getting this deal across the finish line. So, does that answer your question?
It does. And you opened up the next question.
Beautiful.
What's the two-condition close?
Well, so on the back of this deal, right? So the two-condition close that I always lean into is before I tell you what the two conditions are, let's talk about why we use it. Mm-hmm. So we use it because at the very end, what we're trying to do is get the seller to recognize that I'm taking an action towards helping you. So if I agree to help you, then you have to be committed to letting me do that. And so are you committed to letting me do that? And that is the setup and the framing of the two-condition close.
The psychology on the two-condition close is huge.
It is.
It's what you just said, and it's also, without it, if I'm the seller, my first thought is, I wonder if I sold it too cheap.
Yep.
If you just go right to the paperwork.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So here's what I do on the two-condition close. The first condition is I have to get access to the property immediately or in the next 24 hours so that I can verify everything that we've talked about is accurate. Does that work for you? Yes. I get a yes on that. That's the easy one. And then the second condition is I'm going to send you the paperwork in the next 10 minutes. Can you sign it immediately and get it back to me? That's the second condition.
Well, also, there's a noun in that. You said paperwork.
Yep.
Sometimes we may say agreement,
Yep.
but we never say contract.
Right.
So the noun there is also very important.
That's right.
Because some people say, I can get you the contract over in, a couple seconds.
Yep.
That noun contract implies something way different than what people would think than if you just say agreement or.
Yeah. What do you do with a contract?
Yeah.
You take it to your lawyer to review,
Mhm.
right? You call your brother-in-law who is a lawyer and say, hey, these guys sent me this contract. Can you review it? And then what do attorneys do? What are attorneys really good at? You know what they're good at? Screwing everything up.
Yeah.
That's what attorneys are.
And just the mindset is contract
How do you really feel?
feels binding. It feels different.
Yeah, it's language. It's like what we're doing here is really simple. I'm offering to pay you this price for you to sell me the address known as 123 Main Street. Very simple. In very simple terms. I'm going to inspect it over this period of time, or I'm going to do a walkthrough over this period of time. I'm going to close by this date. Very, very simple and straightforward stuff. But yeah, I always say paperwork or agreement. I never say contract. And that's just, I've learned that over the years. If you say contract, sellers want to have it reviewed. If you say paperwork, sellers are like, okay, we can do the paperwork. And then you get it across the finish line. Very simple. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is related to the process of what we call the one call close, the loops and leads model. We've taken that at Freedom Soft and we've put that into our deal negotiator. So we've taken our one call close and we've put it into an online interactive technology that allows a seller to go and engage in the deal negotiator online, right from a QR code, right from an automated text, right from a link, and they get to go through this process and answer a lot of these questions. Like we're talking about the front of the script and the back of the script. What the deal negotiator does is it works out all of the stuff in the middle too, and it gets you the information that helps you move forward and ultimately craft and make that offer that gets a deal across the finish line. So the deal negotiator inside of FreedomSoft is a really, really powerful tool if somebody's not using it. And what it gets you to is that point where you can go through the 2-condition close at the end, make the offer, and then you know what's key? Is to be able to, in that moment, click a couple of buttons, fill out the offer section on your lead details sheet right online, and select your purchase agreement, generate. Because you know what most people do? Then they're like, oh, I got to go find this Word document over here in my Finder on Apple or in my whatever you call it on Mac or on PC. I don't know why anybody use a PC, but whatever. And you go find your Word doc, and then you pull it up, and then you're trying to type this thing out, and then you're like, oh, crap, my Adobe subscription ran out, so I can't convert it to a PDF anymore. And then, oh, shoot.
You got to import it into DocuSign.
Yeah, my credit card failed on my DocuSign subscription, so I got to get that done. Like, you're doing all this crap. You're importing, exporting, doing all this crap. You know what you want to do? You want to click a button that says sign.
Well,
and send it to the seller.
The point of that is, in your scenario, let's just say that was 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
But you just did the 2-condition close very well, and you got the commitment.
Yep.
And let's just say because sometimes we teach just to stay on the phone, right?
I always teach,
yeah. If you can be on the phone when the paperwork is being signed, because the benefit to the seller side is that they're going to be able to pull it up and with you, and then we can walk through it if you have questions, and I can instruct you on how you can just sign really easily.
Yep.
So that's really important. And yeah, I mean that was my thought, was to be on the phone during that situation.
Yep.
And if you have been fumbling around with Word doc and this and that, even if you did the 2-condition close, the speed to the signing is a really important piece on the back end. And if you give them, you know, an hour a day to even think about it, or, you know, falsely, or, you know, incorrectly fill something out or get confused, you may have lost something. Yeah.
100%. And so, you know, whether you're the guy or gal who is doing the acquisitions and having these conversations yourself, or whether your business has grown to the point where you have team members that are doing some of the acquisitions for you, one of the questions that people often ask is, how do I measure somebody's ability to deliver a script? How do I know if they're doing it right, other than listen to them, other than are they getting deals across the finish line? Are we making money? How do I do it? Well, we've got, and I'm just holding this up in front of the camera for those of you that are watching the video. We have these role play scenario game cards that we built. We have one for a set for dispositions, and we have a set for acquisitions. And what they are 30 different scenarios that are scored from a 0 to 100 point score on your ability to deliver the script. And based on the scenario, there's a seller role play situation, and there's the acquisitions or buyer role play scenario, and you have to get through the conversation to the scenario's correct offer. That might be a cash offer, it might be a terms offer, and then you have to be within X percentage of price, and you get points and scores for all of these things, like hitting the steps of the script, getting the numbers right, all of the stuff that goes into it. And so the reason I tell you this is because we built this a number of years ago. I had input on it. I didn't build it. Another gentleman built it. I then helped tweak it, and we now utilize it. So we use it from the very beginning. When we are interviewing someone for an acquisitions role, we'll do a role play to see where they're at. When we're training someone after they've joined the team, we'll use the role play scenarios to train them. And there's a couple of rules, right? Until you can score an 80% or better in a role play scenario consistently, you don't get live leads on my team. 80% or better on the game. Because I know that once you get to 80%, you're not going to be horrible. You're not going to have the highest conversion, but you're not going to be horrible. Once you get to 90% in the training scenarios consistently, 90% consistently in the training materials, you're going to get the best leads. You're going to get the live answer turned on inside of your FreedomSoft account, and you're going to get live calls coming in, because you can now, at a sufficient level of skill, execute the script and get deals across the finish line. So you're going to get the best. If you're 80, you're going to get the prospecting opportunities, the callback opportunities, the follow-up opportunities. If you're 90 or better, you're going to get the live inbound hottest leads. And then from an ongoing standpoint, from just a measurement standpoint, what we do is we take guys' live calls, and we'll have a VA use the script scorecard to measure their live calls. How do they score in a training environment? 80 plus, 90 plus. How do they score in a live call environment? And your live call environment will always score a little lower than your training environment using this scorecard process, just because sellers take you different directions sometimes, and certain things that we might apply a score to aren't relevant and or are not needed. And so what you'll find is that you'll score really bad in the interview and first onboarding week training process. You'll start to score better through the training process, and then you'll get live leads. Then you'll start to get the hottest leads. And then you'll see that your live calls will score a little bit lower. But I'll tell you, our best guys, when they score 90% or better, on live calls, they are the best closers every single time. And so it's a pretty cool process that we have internally to teach people this skill, right? We talk about it all the time. Effort, skill, results. So how do you measure skill? And how do you know when you're a sufficient level of skill? Well, I can tell you in the acquisitions and dispositions role play training games, we have objective measured scores that tell us when your level of skill is sufficiently there. So if you're wondering, what's my level of skill? We could actually tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And we can tell you that once you hit 80, you're going to start to see some results. Once you hit 90, you'll see consistent results. And once you can hold 90 in a real world scenario with live leads, having a VA score your actual calls, once you get 90, you're going to be one of the best acquisitions closers ever. Huge. Massive.
Mm-hmm.
And fun.
Incredible.
Yeah. So guys, I don't know.
And fun.
Hey, there is if you're interested, if we're wrapping or when you're ready to wrap, I did upload a picture that Mom sent us of you and your plane. I don't know if you're interested in showing that yet.
I'm going to hold off on that.
Okay.
I'm going to hold off on that.
Yeah, it'll be ready.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have it up there ready for you in case you were excited.
I am. I am excited. I am excited. We're just gonna, we'll get it. We'll get it there.
One thing that we kind of went off on a tangent. I think it left your train of thought, but you were talking about the second half of the 2-condition close, and on the second condition, if they can sign the paperwork today,
Yep.
right? And then I kind of sent you off on a little tangent, but you didn't finish that thought. I think what you were getting into is the importance of why they need to say yes there, and if they say no, then the loops and leads brings them backwards because you are not ready to make the offer and you're not ready to send the paperwork, which I think some people would make the mistake in saying like, okay, well, if you can get to it tomorrow or maybe whenever, then we're good to go. But that's the scenario that you said where people, don't get paperwork signed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that comes down to the scarcity, urgency, and offer.
Yep.
Right. And so you've got to have the scarcity of I only have so much money. You've got to have the urgency of we need to do it now, because if we don't do it now, and there's a sentence in there. I mean, I'm giving you the general rules, but there's a statement in there that says, once I commit, once I make the offer and we agree verbally, I mentally set that money aside, and it becomes your money. And John, I need to know that you're ready to sell right now so that I can mentally set that money aside. When you start to have that type of, like, people don't want to hurt other people generally, and especially if you've done a good job of building rapport and becoming known, likable, and trustworthy over the last 38 minutes, right? People generally don't want to take advantage of you. And so the reason we're doing the scarcity, urgency, and the call to action is for exactly that reason. If they are not prepared, John, I'm gonna send you the paperwork right now. Why don't we just go ahead and stay on the phone? Are you in front of your computer right now? Do you have your email open? Great. What's your best email address? Type it in. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm filling out the paperwork here. I'll have this over to you in a second. Hang tight. And then I send it over to them and I keep them on the phone. Hey, did you get it? All right. Click the blue button. Sign. Click complete. I'll walk them through it while I'm on the phone. And the same thing I use if I'm belly to belly with a seller, if I'm meeting them face to face, here's what I do. This is just a sidebar because you brought me back to this. Now we're back into like training mode and we were trying to wrap up. Good job, Jeepers. So when I walk up,
this is serious stuff. This is why it's important.
Stuff. Yeah, this is good stuff. When I walk up to the door with a seller, like some guys will train you and teach you to walk up with your clipboard, or some guys will, they'll have their fancy, home buyer shirt on. That's fine. but they'll have their clipboard and they'll have all this stuff. You know what I do? I walk up with nothing. You know, if I have a nice logoed shirt, that's cool. I'm professional. I'm whatever. But I walk up with nothing, because here's what I want. Part of my in-person to condition close is, so Henry, we've talked through the math, the numbers, the timing, and you know, I think it makes sense to you. I think we're on the same page. Does it make sense for me to walk out to my truck and get the paperwork and come back in and for us to sign this so that I can get it over to the title company this afternoon? I'm asking, does it make sense for me to walk out of your house to my truck, get the paperwork, and come back in? You know what the expectation is if I do that? We're signing the paperwork.
We're signing. That's right.
We're signing the paperwork. And people don't do that. They walk in and they walk in, they have the conversation, they open up their clipboard and they start filling out the paperwork. We didn't get commitment. We want commitment from people. And so, I mean, I didn't do that early in my career, but I've started to figure out how to increase my conversions over time. And, you know, it's been.
That's a huge tip for anybody doing.
Right.
That's
right.
meeting face to face.
I never walk in with my clipboard, and I always ask, does it make sense for me to go out to my truck and grab the paperwork so we can get it over to the title company today? As soon as they say yes, the deal's done.
It's the same psychology, right? They don't want to let you down, right?
That's right.
If Rob's going to spend his time to go back out to the truck, fill it out, come back to me,
Yep.
and make that trip. It's not a big trip, but it's something.
Totally.
Then yeah, I need to say yes or no here.
100%. 100%.
And anybody at your door with stuff, you know they're trying to sell you something.
Yep.
Whereas if you come up just with nothing,
Yep.
it's the wall doesn't get put up.
Right.
I'm just here to chat. Yeah, it's
I
good
like
stuff.
it, guys. All right. Well, I think we did a session 1, session 2 on scripts. We covered a lot of stuff. I mean, I think there's some good nuggets in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some really good stuff in this. So here's what we want you to do, guys. If you like this, would you do us a favor? Would you subscribe on YouTube? Would you subscribe on your favorite podcast player? Would you share it with your friends? And that just gives us the feedback that we're doing the right thing and having a good time doing it, and that you are enjoying the content and getting value. So if you would do that for us, that would help out the old algorithms. With that being said, that's a wrap, gentlemen. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
See ya.
Peace.